Andrew. I'm here with Knowledge for Men, and I'm thrilled to introduce my guest, Billy Murphy. He's a professional poker player for 4 years. His first online business was Bluefire Poker in 2009, and he challenged the president and ended up on Fox News 2 months after. So really interested about that, and quickly became one of the largest poker training sites with just viral word-of-mouth marketing. In 2011, he started some e-commerce. He bought a niche e-commerce store, which quickly scaled, and by the end of 2011, he was running close to 15 to 20 e-commerce sites. He launched Forever Jobless in August 2012. So, all right, Billy, go ahead and tell us about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, I started playing poker back in college, and then just did it for side income, just did it for fun, and slowly learned to play the game. So started playing professionally shortly after college. Did that for a couple years, I think 3 or 4 years, and then saw a need in the poker training market, and so launched Bluefire Poker. The thing we got on Fox News, it was basically around the legislation of poker. They were Congress was basically trying to make poker illegal because it was a game of luck. And so my argument was, it's clearly a game of skill, and we offered $1 million for President Obama or any congressman to play one of our pros, and if they could beat them, they get $1 million to the charity of their choice. So Fox News picked it up, and then after Fox News picked it up, a lot of the other news within poker picked it up, and so it really created a big firestorm of media for us, and it was huge. It helped us a lot since we just launched, and I guess 2011. Started getting into e-commerce stores, and it was basically, at that point, the poker site ran relatively passive, so I didn't do a lot of the day-to-day with it, and so just wanted a new challenge. I had a buddy who did e-commerce stores and doing really well, and so he said, hey, give e-commerce a shot, see what you can do. And so I did, and hopped into that, bought an organic baby furniture store for $4,000 on Flippa, and then started a French pastry site the same week, and then just kind of figured it out and kept scaling up. And then I think literally within like 9 months, we had probably 15 or 20 stores, and just kept ramping up. And then now I'm working on Econ Lab, which is basically a e-commerce training site, which is I saw a lot of the same needs in e-commerce that I saw in poker, where it was you can tell a lot by being in it that, hey, there's a lot that people still need help with in the industry. So basically I created Econ Lab to help people who want to get started with their first store, or maybe they have a store and they're not doing very well with it yet. So we're going to be basically doing video training for e-commerce store owners.
All right. Back on the poker, did the Congress or the president answer your call?
No, actually, we had 2 guys contact us. It wasn't anybody directly, but it was people supposedly representing someone in Congress, and they inquired about it, but no one actually took us up on it. But we actually got a lot of random people requesting to speak with us about it, and a lot of media that said they wanted to make it happen. And we had people who were going to try and get it on television for us if it didn't happen. And so it was pretty interesting that the people that we got in contact with because of that.
So that just turned into a lot of traffic for you guys for the site.
Yeah, I got a lot of traffic, and never nothing happened with it. But honestly, I didn't think anything would happen with it. It was basically a PR play for the most part.
That's awesome. What would have happened if they did answer your call? Did you have the $1 million?
Yeah, we would have figured out a way to make it happen. I mean, that would have been an even bigger PR play. So obviously, we hoped it did happen, but we just didn't expect it to. So yeah, we would have figured out a way to make it happen.
That's awesome. If you could share with us some of did you have any background experience with online internet marketing when you launched Bluefire Poker in 2009?
Nothing. So that was my first internet business. I had done little projects before, like I sold like sports cards online when I was in high school, but nothing. I didn't actually have like a real like a website in business. So that was my first one. So no experience in being an internet marketer or anything like that. No.
What was your biggest lesson with Bluefire Poker in starting that, since it was your first business?
Biggest lesson for sure was finding developers who are easy to work with. I think we got held up for 9 months where we couldn't do anything with, we had great content. We had a lot of marketing ideas ready to be put into play, but we couldn't launch the site. And so it was supposed to take 3 months, took about 9. We hired out of India. It was horrible. So that's the biggest thing, is being able to communicate with a developer. Like I'm going through the same, development process now with Econ Lab, and it's a lot easier. I mean, the developers, I did a lot of due diligence on developers before I hired them this time, and so it's easy to communicate, and it's going to go a lot quicker. Where we had our code held hostage because they wanted additional money for the project, because it was taking longer than they thought, and it was just very hard, and there were so many errors with the site. Like, we'd get the site back, they say, okay, it's finished, and we say, no, there's still all these errors, and they'd say, well, it's going to take more time. They wanted a bigger budget. And, it was just really, really hard to deal with, and they're in another country, and so it was it's probably the hardest lesson.
What kind of advice would you give to the listeners about picking a developer? It sounds like you've gone through the rounds.
Well, I looked at reviews of probably like over 100 people. Tried to get them recommended from somebody. Tried to talk to other people who've dealt with them. Then I called them and interviewed them myself. I got bids, and it's funny when you get bids. You see how crazy the development world is. I got bids anywhere from like $4,000 to $183,000 for this project. And so clearly it has nothing, it's very, so you need to be careful. A lot of people get in and just assume that something costs a certain amount of money. But a little more due diligence, you can probably get it for a lot cheaper, just because a lot of people are just putting on huge margins as the same exact project that we're asking for. And so, so one of the things I think that helps working with developers is to lay out a very specific, like, here's exactly what we want. Like, here's what we want on the homepage. Here's what we want on the sign-up page. Here's what we want on the, in the forums or blogs or whatever you're putting up. And then it's easier for them to clarify things and add in, what they think it's going to cost and all that. And, the first project I learned, we weren't that specific. And so it was easy for them to say, oh, well, we just want more for all these things. You didn't tell us this specifically. And as you know, from if you work with a foreign developer, if you say something, they take it very literally. So if you say, hey, I want a button on this page, they might send you back a page where like the button is like the whole page. And so you're like, no, that's not what I wanted. But like technically that's what you asked for. And so, because of the language barriers and all that, it's very hard. And so the biggest thing, like I would pay 2 to 3 times as much for a developer if I can communicate with them really easily. So communication is huge. I would say don't get in with a developer if you can't communicate really well. Like if they have trouble understanding you in the first conversation or two, just don't hire them. Unless it's like a tiny project that it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing a big project, you need to get somebody you can work with. Like just in the last week, I've probably done like 20 to 30 calls with the main guy I talked to for the development company. And so if I wasn't able to communicate with him, it would just be a nightmare trying to relay, everything I want to relay, and for him to do the same with me. So communication is the key. I mean, definitely pay extra for a guy you can talk with.
Wow, it sounds like you spend a lot of time trying to get like the best talent that's going to work with you and your team.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that's where I messed up early on, is just kind of getting anyone to do it, because you figure like, oh, you're a developer, okay, you can make a site for me. It's not quite that easy, unless it's like if you're doing a WordPress site or something like that, there's tons of guys who can work with that.
So after Bluefire Poker, you went and built, you started running, you said 15 to 20 e-commerce sites. Like, what was your major like aha moment where you realized that like, hey, I can scale this, like I can get more of these, like I understand what's going on? Like, what happened there?
So the first one I bought, it was for like $4,000, and it was making about $900 a month when I bought it. So at the time, I didn't think you could actually do that. So I thought I was going to get ripped off, put 4,000 in and maybe the traffic would disappear. I had no idea what was going to happen. So after I bought it, it was working, and money kept coming in. And so I was looking at it like, wow, like why wouldn't I buy everything that becomes available, or start every niche that I think it could be profitable. And so I really just started doing that. If a good deal came up, I would just buy it. If a good niche came up that I thought would be profitable, I would just start it and work out the deals with the suppliers and start selling it. And it's really crazy if you think about it, because like e-commerce is one of the most untapped markets. Think about it like this: if you're thinking about getting a house, if you're thinking about getting into real estate and you want to do like a rental house, so maybe you put down like 30 grand on a house, and you're hoping to get $100, $200 a month in income on the property. And so but you can do the same thing with an e-commerce store and put down like $1,000. And so the returns are just crazy in e-commerce stores because so many people are unfamiliar. They think there's a huge barrier to entry where, a lot of people say, how do I know what niche to go into? How would I know what store to buy? How do I get traffic and all that? And so a lot of it, people can kind of figure out pretty easily. It's not that complicated. And all the other investment opportunities out there, they're not that good. And so I realized this and just kind of kept buying, kept starting new stuff, and it was pretty passive. I mean, I did it very passive. I think other people don't do it quite as passive. So I basically hired people to handle all my customer service, anything in dealing with suppliers. I didn't touch any of that. So basically, people would kind of show me kind of our monthly numbers, and I would go over them, and I'd spend my time like looking for something new to buy or looking for something new to start, and then I'd spend my time trying to find people to outsource like the SEO to, for example.
Yeah.
So it was pretty passive for me the way I did it, and I think other people could set it up like that, where if they're looking for kind of a passive business, the e-commerce store is a pretty good one to do, and it's a lot cheaper than other stuff that's out there.
Okay. How would you explain it to a newcomer? Like, how could someone go and buy an e-commerce site?
So if you're looking to buy one, there's sites like Flippa out there. Like I found a lot of my deals on Flippa, where, I mean, it tells you, they list, here's what the site makes, here's the traffic, and obviously you've got to verify all this with due diligence, but they'll basically list out, like, here's what my business makes, and you can buy it or not. And because a lot of people are afraid to take the risk of buying it, a lot of those deals go for really cheap. I mean, for the most part, you're looking at spending probably between 6 and 18 months income if you buy a store. So if something's making like 10 grand, you might end up spending 10 grand for that store. So you'll make your money back probably within a year or so on those businesses. And keep in mind, that's if you didn't really spend time trying to grow it. So if you bought a store and tried to grow it, you could end up doing a lot better. So a lot of those deals on Flippa, for example, I mean, there's other sites like Biz Buy Sell that deal in a little bit higher price stuff. But Flippa, a lot of the stuff is cheap, anywhere from $1,000 to 30,000. It's a lot of the range. But I would just scan Flippa, and I would go through and try and find good deals, and then I would call the seller. I'd find out more about it. Do I think they're being honest with the numbers? And a lot of it you can verify, so you can ask for their the back end of their store, and so you can look in and see if the sales actually came in. Look at their bank statements, and so you can verify a lot of this stuff pretty easily.
Okay. So, is it common, or is it something that you'd recommend where somebody would buy one of these stores on Flippa and then work on it for 3 to 6 months, build it up, and then just put it back on Flippa for a quick profit?
Yeah, if they wanted to flip it and make money doing that, that's a good way to go. There's a lot of things, especially with prices or stores in that price range. They're clearly like a mom and pop operation, and they're clearly most of the time like a side project for people. And so what that usually means is they're, for example, a lot of them don't have phone numbers. So because they're working a job during the day and they kind of have this as their side thing. So doing little simple things like, hey, adding a phone number to your site, you'll get more sales. Or some people just have PayPal, so add a credit card option. And so just those two things alone, like I could buy a store, find a store that didn't have those two things, put those two things on, and the income would increase because more people are likely to buy because you have more options to pay, more options to call and place an order. So you could, let's say you have a store making. A good way to look at it is, let's say you buy a store, it's not a good ad. Because a lot of those people, they're not copywriters either. So you put an ad up, hey, I need to get rid of my store. It's buy my store for $5,000, whatever. Only has PayPal, doesn't have a phone number. So you could buy that. You could increase the revenue by just doing a couple quick tweaks. And maybe you spend some time trying to increase the traffic while you're at it. Put a better ad up in a couple months. Say, hey, here's all the details on the store. Here's why it's a good store to buy. It's passive. You could hire a copywriter to do it for you, but you may get a higher multiple as well because of the fact that it's how to explain like the benefits of buying that store. So let's say you bought a store that's making $500 a month for $5,000. Well, maybe now it's making $800 a month because a couple small changes you made, but you may also get a higher multiple. So maybe you'll buy that for $5,000, increase the monthly income on it, but also get a higher multiple. So maybe you'll sell it for 12. That's not that unrealistic.
That's really cool. That's good stuff. So what's exciting? What's going on in your business? Like, what excites you today?
So I've been working on Econ Lab for a while now. I mean, we've been working on the content for probably 6 months, 5-6 months, and we're basically bringing on a lot of experts at whatever area in e-commerce they're an expert at. So we're bringing on SEO experts, PPC experts, people who have created their own products, gone to China, created their own products. Basically, we're trying to bring on, I'm not an expert at everything in e-commerce, so I'm trying to bring on a lot of people who are at whatever niche they are. And basically, we're doing video-based training on every single subject you want to know in running an e-commerce store. So just trying to make it really easy for people who say, had all the same questions I had when I started. I don't know what niche to pick. I don't know, how to get my store running. I don't know, how to get my traffic to convert. So we're trying to solve all those problems. And the big issue I saw was there's, you can pay, an agency to do it for you, or you can pay somebody to consult and do it for you, but it's so pricey. Most people starting out don't have, $1,000 a month to spend on, an agency to get their traffic for them or teach them what to do. And so, the way we're setting it up is we wanted to be super affordable for everybody, so that rather than having somebody else do it for you and paying them a lot of money, we'll tell you exactly how to do it. It's like we're holding your hand and walking you through it, but you just watch these videos and we tell you what to do. That's
a really cool site you have going on there. Yeah, so an obstacle or failure that you had in the past, and how did you overcome that?
I guess the biggest recent one was probably just running so many projects at once. So I think that's a big thing that most entrepreneurs get in trouble with is I found myself in that spot where, so I'm running, the e-commerce stores, 15 to 20 e-commerce stores, a poker company, trying to start an e-commerce training company, trying to blog at Forever Jobless. And so it's just a lot where you can't really dedicate all your energy to one thing. So basically everything suffers because of it. So that's a big thing. I actually wrote a post, entrepreneurial diversification on Forever Jobless. And I wish I had listened to my own advice back when I was starting the stores, and I would have focused more. And I probably wouldn't have started so many. I probably would have made a bigger effort on starting an authority site for the e-commerce stores. But so actually recently I sold off a number of the stores to focus more on the training company, because I think that's really what I wanted to spend a lot of time on right now. And the other stuff, having 20 different stores, it's very hard to say, other than looking at numbers and seeing how they're doing, I didn't have a lot of time to do much more than that. So it was tough to really do really well in the stores, do really well at the e-commerce training company, and try and write for my blog at the same time. Like there's not enough time in the day to do it all. So just trying to focus more, I think is a huge thing that I think everybody gets caught up in, and I definitely had to clear my plate a little bit.
Yeah, so focus.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
seems to be a common theme.
Especially beginning. I mean, I see a lot of people who have never done like one business before, and they'll try and start like their first business, but they'll start like 10 kind of microsites, and it's like that's going to be the hardest. If somebody's just starting and doesn't have one successful one yet, it's like they don't know how to make a successful one yet, and so they won't learn if they try and do 10 at the same time. I mean, it was a little different with me because I had a couple that were already working. But, a lot of people with their first one, the most important thing is just to learn and figure it out.
Very good advice. Common theme I'm hearing from all these books that I'm reading is just focus. Yeah. Billy, what's your vision for the future?
The vision for Econ Lab, I want to build a big community of people in the e-commerce space that are kind of sharing their stories. We're going to have a lot of case studies and interviews and tutorials from people who have kind of been there, done that, and so other people can learn from them. I think there's not a big space right now where people can kind of get together and talk specifically about e-commerce stores. There's a lot of entrepreneur forums, and e-commerce stores is kind of like a little tiny subniche within them right now. So I kind of wanted to see a big, massive audience of people who are just focused on e-commerce stores. So I think we'll try and do that.
Do you have any advice for people who are going to Vegas this summer, and which is myself?
I guess the biggest advice, well, for Vegas in general or poker?
Poker. Oh, yeah, poker.
Poker. Okay, so for poker in general, I mean, I guess the easiest for like a beginning poker player, I would say don't play many hands. Like play very very tight. Like fold a lot. You know, most of the people at the table won't be doing that, but it's okay. Like they're not playing correct. So don't focus on what they're doing, but don't play many hands. And when you do, play them very very aggressively, and don't essentially don't stop betting to a degree. So, for example, an easy strategy, like I used to essentially play as a human robot a little bit when I was online. Like I just kind of had this strategy I had to use that you didn't have to think a lot. It just worked. But if you play very tight and you're essentially raising pre-flop, whenever you're playing a hand, you're raising. You're not limping in. So you're raising pre-flop. Whoever calls you on the flop, as long as there's, let's say, two people or less, so there's one or two people in the pot with you, you're betting 100% of the time post-flop. And so what will happen is the majority of the time they're not going to have a good hand post-flop, enough to call you there. So if they do, when the turn card comes out, if the turn card is, let's say there was no ace on the board, if the turn card is now an ace, definitely bet again. And so what's going to happen is if the person was able to call the flop and the turn card comes as an ace, he's probably not going to have an ace because he probably would have had to call with, like, let's say a pair on the flop to be able to call. He was not going to call you with an ace high because you're betting again for the second time. And so that type of strategy is you could almost, like back in the day, you could make a living off just knowing how to do that. Just betting because in the correct spots where people, especially if you're playing tight, people are going to be like, this guy doesn't bet a lot, so he probably has it here. And so they'll be more likely to fold to you. But yeah, just play really, really tight.
Jumping into Bluefire Poker, like, was there anything that was holding you back from being an entrepreneur, a full-time entrepreneur where you didn't have any income yet and you were going to build this website?
Anything holding me back from deciding to launch it?
Yeah. Or just being an entrepreneur in general. Some people say like fear, or they have these, or their parents, or they had children.
Like being a poker player in general, you're to some degree like an entrepreneur. Like you're not.
Yeah.
You decide when you want to work. You decide kind of what stakes you want to play. So it's what level of risk you want to have. So and I'd always been kind of an entrepreneur. Like I sold baseball cards in high school to make a living, or not a living, but instead of a job. So I was always used to that, like not depending on a job. So I view having a job as really risky. That's crazy risk to me because essentially someone else is determining everything that happens to you. They're determining where you're going to go in the future. They're determining how much you make. They're determining essentially if you have a job, you're putting a ceiling on not only your income, which they put a ceiling on your income, but they put a ceiling on your opportunities in the future. Like what are you getting exposed to? Like some of the opportunities I'm involved in right now, the access to people I get is one of the biggest benefits. And you wouldn't get that in the job. Like the people I can talk to and network with because of the situations I put myself in, I wouldn't have that in the job. I'd essentially talk to whoever they wanted me to talk to make their company more money. And so, if someone hires you for a job, they hire you for a job because you can make them money. That's why you're hired for a job. And so it's, a job is essentially based around what you can do for the company, where, if I'm working for myself, if I'm starting a business or whatever I'm doing for myself, everything that I do benefits me and my future. And so your ceiling's totally uncapped at all times. And so I think, so a lot of people view being an entrepreneur is pretty risky. Like I think the opposite. I think having a job is one of the riskiest things you can do because you control nothing. And so, if in 5 years you're not where you want to be, it's not because of the job. It's because you let them pick what was going to happen with you. And obviously you can help yourself out by working harder and moving up the ladder in a job, but it's still like their ladder. They kind of determine what they want to do with you. So.
Yeah, I agree exactly. That sounds a lot like your blog there. It sounds like a blog post you just. But yeah, and you never know if that ladder you're climbing is even leaned up against the right wall. I think that's a huge thing there.
Sure.
What's the best business advice you've ever received?
Best business advice. So there's a good quote, and I can't remember I don't think I came up with it. I think I heard it a while ago. I don't know. I have no idea who came up with it, but it was something along the lines of listen to those you aspire to be like and ignore everyone else. So that's the biggest thing when people get in business and they listen to kind of everybody, but the majority of people have no idea what they're talking about. And so the biggest thing that I learned a lot from talking to people who had already been there was you need to take advice from people who have been exactly where you want to be. A lot of people, you can see in the blogging world a lot of people take advice from people who they write about how to make money, but they've never actually made money. And so so people are reading their blog and they're getting pumped up like, oh yeah, like this guy said I should make money like this, but that guy's like never been where they want to be. So if somebody wants to make, say somebody wants to make 20 grand a month, right? Well, you have to learn from somebody who's done that already. I mean, somebody making 2 grand a month is not going to show you like, okay, here's how you make 20 grand a month. Although that's how a lot of the people teach online is, they haven't been there, but they're teaching how to do it, where a lot of people get caught up in, listening to people who are glad to give you their advice, but it's, sometimes like free advice is actually really expensive because you end up wasting all your time doing stuff that, is coming from the wrong source. So I think it's really important to say, if I want to, be a multimillionaire, you've got to talk to people who actually already are, or it's not going to be the advice that is definitely the correct advice. So
yeah, that is so powerful, especially in if you go to like seminars and stuff like that, where people are trying to sell you how to become a millionaire when they're also trying to become a millionaire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of them become millionaires by selling you how to become one. So
yeah, have you applied that advice in your life? Like, have you gone through that where somebody was giving you advice and they weren't exactly where you wanted to be, and you had to learn through trial and error?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always read tons and tons of forums. And on forums, everybody's willing to give you their opinion, right? If you ask somebody for their opinion, they'll give it to you. It doesn't matter if they don't know the answer, but they're like, people like to hear themselves give advice. I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's an ego thing or what it is, but I enjoy it. Like other people enjoy it, but the problem is, like if somebody asks me a question I don't know it, I'll say, look, I really don't know the answer. But a lot of people would just kind of tell you what they think you want to hear, and it gets you in trouble. So yeah, I would read all these forums. Like going back in the day, like the Rich Dad forums, when they used to have forums, I would read tons of stuff on there, and I'd assume like people would be talking about making money, and I'd be like, that's awesome. And I actually like get on the phone with people, and then they try and like pitch me an MLM, and I'd be like, wait, like, and at the time I think it was all like, okay, this must be the route to go, but I didn't know, the guy like can barely afford his rent and like all this stuff. But on the forum, he's like this guru poster, and so you would have no idea, and so. So I've definitely experienced that when I didn't know who to look to. Like anyone's willing to give you advice, and oh, by the way, I have a product that you can buy too. And so it's very tough to see, hey, who's actually been there. I'm glad to pay for stuff. Like I've paid a lot of money for certain groups I'm in, certain conferences and all that, and I love paying money if I think I'll get benefit. But the problem is if the people you're buying something from haven't been there, it's like you need to run away immediately. That's the biggest lesson I've learned.
That's really good advice. I like that advice a lot. What 2 websites, let's say like you had to build a business and you were only limited to 2 websites. Which websites would you be a part of? And don't not Google, obviously. That's that's everything. In terms of like resources and things that you really find beneficial. Like you said you're a part of forums and you're happy to pay for them. Or any websites that you find most useful for you in your entrepreneurship.
Well, just for entrepreneurs, like you're asking for good sites they can visit and check out?
Yeah, that you would highly recommend.
Yeah, I think my friend MJ runs the Fastlane forums.
Yeah.
I wrote Millionaire Fastlane. He's actually one of the guys who was old school Rich Dad poster back in the day, and actually where I first started reading his stuff like 7 or 8 years ago. And so his stuff is always good. There's a number of good entrepreneurs in the forums there.
Yeah.
And another one, like a blog. Like I don't read a lot of blogs because there's not a lot of like high quality blogs out there, but Neil Patel, his blog is really good. Quick Sprout.
Okay, yeah.
Really, really good blog. Yeah, those are probably two of the main places. If you said, hey, like you got to just read two places, I think those two would be a good start.
Awesome. That's great advice. And now I'm going to give you another scenario here. This will be interesting to see what you do. So imagine you woke up and you were 20 and you have all the knowledge that you have now and you just have a laptop and $1,000. What would you do?
I'd probably form some sort of a joint venture with someone, and because with $1,000, I probably wouldn't be able to like launch a big site very quickly. Yeah, do a deal through somebody else's network, since I wouldn't be able to build a business too quickly with that. So I find somebody else who either has a traffic source or a product, and just really hustle until I had enough funds to launch a company.
All right. So teamwork.
Yep.
Partnering. Okay. And so now we're just ending here. And if you want to give the audience some parting piece of guidance about entrepreneurship or life in general, and then go ahead and give yourself a plug for Forever Jobless and your future websites.
Sure. Yeah, I guess on top of the advice of just listening to people that you aspire to be like, I guess I think a big thing is people focus on making money in the wrong way. I think a lot of people are chasing the money instead of chasing like the value they can provide to people. Like I'm not starting Econ Lab because like I want to make a bunch of money on e-commerce stuff. Like a byproduct of providing the value to e-commerce people is like the site will make money because like it's a huge need. Like people need it. I think a lot of people get caught up in the trap of okay, what site can I start to make 10 grand or 100 grand or whatever, and that's how they get in trouble, is they're focusing on themselves rather than like all their potential customers that are out there. So I find it if you can find a need, you'll make as much money as the need is big. So another big thing kind of on the same topic is that a lot of people starting out early are so focused on making a couple extra dollars. So if they can make if they get one job offer or business offer, they can make them $5,000. Well, this one can make me $6,000, so I'm going to take that one. And a lot of people, like the money as you start out early on is a lot less relevant than the knowledge you'll pick up. So once you have the knowledge, like you mentioned, if I was just kind of didn't have any money and had a bunch of knowledge, I can go do a deal with someone and make a lot of money very fast. But if I didn't have any knowledge, I'm in a spot where it almost doesn't matter how much money I have saved up. Like I can't really take that money and scale it because I don't know how to. But if you once you gain the knowledge, you can really do anything you want. And so a lot of people focus their first jobs or their internships or whatever it may be on just, can I make $10 an hour here or $12 an hour here? And it's totally irrelevant. So like I just had a guy work for me for free for almost a year, but in exchange, like he gets to be involved in like all the businesses I'm in. Like he gets to kind of be involved in meetings I'm in and calls I'm in, and he gets to see why I'm doing everything the way I'm doing it. And so a lot of people I feel like would be better off doing some work for free rather than trying to make a couple extra bucks when they don't the opportunity a lot of times won't allow them to pick up any knowledge. So if you fast forward a couple years and you got an extra 20 grand stashed away, but you don't know anything, well, what does that 20 grand do for you? It really doesn't do anything. But if you work for a couple of years and each opportunity you get involved with, you pick up a lot of knowledge. Well, in a couple of years, you're going to be able to do anything you want. You want to launch a company? What do you want to do? You'll know exactly how to do it all. And then the money scales up. So a lot of people is slowly, move up the ladder where doing that, you'll just all of a sudden be able to make a lot of money because you'll know exactly how to do it. It's not that complicated. It's just that a lot of people don't spend the time to learn how to do it. So
that's really good advice. I'm happy that we had that part right there. I'm really excited for that. And go ahead and give yourself a plug on anything that you want to talk about.
Yeah. So if people want help, setting up an e-commerce store, anything from getting traffic to it to finding a good niche to buying a store, they can sign up for econlab.com. It should be up. But I guess by the time this airs, it'll be up. And then if they want to read some of my blog posts, it's foreverjobless.com. It's basically just talking about ways that I make money, some case studies from my own life, and just different theories on why some people make money and why some people don't.
All right. All right, so that'll end our interview here with Billy Murphy from Forever Jobless, and really excited to get this up live. So thank you for your time.
Cool. Yeah, thanks again for having me on.